Hey there, welcome to Little Curiosities, where we discuss something we're curious about every episode. In this episode, we talk about the moments in a day when we are the most creative. You know I'm not an expert in anything, but neuroscience is extremely far from what I do know. I did do a lot of research, and you'll see me reference many articles, so I don't give you unsubstantiated claims, but take from it what you will. Alright, let's get into it. Do you ever get hit with a random burst of creativity right before you fall asleep? Come up with the most innovative solutions to problems when you're groggy and lost in brain fog? You might remember that in my trailer for the show, I joked about getting hit with the most random thoughts and questions while I'm in the shower or right before I go to bed. It's a true encounter though, and I'm not the only one who's experienced that. Shower Thoughts is a whole Reddit page with more than 20 million members. Turns out there's actually a reason for that. Being focused isn't the best state for you to get your creativity on. Instead, being tired, distracted, anything but trying to be creative, even when you're sleeping, is when you are the most creative. Why is that? First, we gotta talk about what creativity is. What's happening in our brains when we are creative? So, creativity is the process where we come up with new and valuable ideas, right? In other words, it's when we make new connections between things that diverge from what's common, at least to our knowledge. For example, using a bobby pin to hold your hair in place is pretty common usage. Using it to hold a nail in place while you're hammering that nail in, that's creative. Kudos to Family Handyman. I've never thought of that until I read about it. Then again, I've never tried hammering a nail in, so. But what's actually happening in our brains when we are creative? There was a study done by Liu et al. On the brain activity of rappers while performing freestyle rap. As reported in Buffer, the researchers found that while the rappers were improvising, there was decreased activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That was hard to say. That's the part of your brain that manages your cognitive processes, like your memory, planning, paying attention, solving problems, making decisions, important stuff. Increased activity was found instead in the medial prefrontal cortex. That's the part that helps regulate our emotions, learn associations, helps us with social decision making, the ability to learn from our mistakes. So, simply put, the part of our brain associated with important executive functions is relaxed. That allows more natural defocused attention and uncensored processes to occur. Now, when we're tired and our brains are a little fuzzy, it's hard to focus. We won't be doing any crazy number-crunching, brain-racking activity when we're tired. Unless you're a university student, then you're always doing that. It's part of the package. But when we're tired, we're unfocused, which surprisingly makes us more creative. The Atlantic reported on a study done by Mareki Wyeth. I'm not sure how to read that, I'm so sorry. Anyways, it was a study done about the effects of the grogginess on creativity with 428 student subjects. Some of these students were night owls. Some of them were morning people. What she found was that the time of the day did not affect either group's problem-solving ability of analytical questions. But for problems that required creative thinking, both groups did better when they were less alert, at whatever time of the day that was for them. Their grogginess, in fact, gave them a 20% boost. In the article, Wyeth said that when people are alert, they might get too efficient at focusing and filtering out distractions. But when you're not so alert, your mind wanders. Your inhibitions are down, your brain starts making connections and associations that you'd otherwise ignore when you're alert. It also doesn't remember old established connections as well, so you end up making new associations, thinking in new ways. So this diffuse attention enables us to be more innovative in our thinking. This is the same when you're drunk. Your foggy mind gets creative. This is not to say that you should go out and get drunk or force yourself to stay awake nights on end in the name of creativity. Please don't do that. But if you like to put away the caffeine, that may help with innovative thinking, because caffeine prevents diffuse attention. There's a really great article on this by the New Yorker. But back to that. A little grogginess might inspire some bursts of creativity, but so does sleep. An article by the Medical Express talked about a study done by Sarah Metnick and Denise Chai, I'm not very sure how to read that, about the effects of REM on creative processing. Participants were tasked to solve some problems that required creative thinking. Those who did so after REM sleep had a 40% improvement in their performances. Metnick states in the article that REM sleep actually stimulates the associative networks in our brains. So new connections get made in our brains as we sleep. Remember, creativity is about making new associations. Perhaps that's why my dreams are so crazy and are things I never think of when I'm awake. I had one this morning that was like a whole blockbuster. Lots of chase scenes and magic. In another article by The Atlantic, a study by Penny Lewis and 2 other researchers discovered that REM sleep and non-REM sleep come together to stimulate this connection and association process. I'll try to summarize it in simple terms, because I understand if you don't do science, I don't either. Basically, during non-REM sleep, your brain does reruns of your memories to incorporate and consolidate them into your existing knowledge or long-term memory. This also helps your brain pull out the general gist from the specific details of your memories. During REM sleep, the connection between your hippocampus and neocortex gets interrupted by a chemical in your brain. Basically, that means they're both in a flexible state now. It's easier for neuron connections to be formed. So your neocortex now starts to search for connections and similarities between ideas that may seem unrelated. Essentially, the idea is that non-REM sleep kinda helps you draw out concepts. REM sleep helps you connect these concepts. An article by Pop Sugar states that there's a 33% greater chance of people making these creative connections between unrelated concepts after waking up from sleep. So it turns out you don't really have to force yourself to subsist in a half-asleep state to get those creative juices flowing. Sleep is important too. But what about those ideas we get in the shower or right before we fall asleep? This has to do with being relaxed and distracted. As quoted in Business Insider, when you're relaxed, your mind starts to wander. So much like what happens when you're tired and unfocused, your wandering thoughts lead you to make new associations and to come up with creative ideas. Distraction also helps. An article in the Reader's Digest talks about how a light distraction may just be enough to engage some absent-minded parts of our brains. This frees the other parts of your brain to come into play and run wild with creative ideas. When you're taking a shower, for instance, you're going through the motions of turning on the shower, rubbing in that face wash. You don't really think about what you're doing. So your mind starts to wander and run through new thoughts. Coupled with the feelings of relaxation, you've got a killer combo for creativity here. That's also why intensely trying to think of ideas might not be the best inspiration for creativity. I believe it works sort of the same way before you fall asleep. When you're exercising too, unless you're doing a very intense HIIT session and trying to focus in your phone, I don't think I get very distracted when I'm working out and barely catching my breath. So what I'm getting from all this research is that the best time for creativity is from the time you wind down after a long day, you zone off on the bus on the way home. Don't do that if you're driving, please. You do your daily workout maybe, you take a shower, you get sleepy, you prepare for bed, you sleep, till maybe the time after you wake up. These are all the hot spots for creativity. Add in also the additional instances where you get groggy in the mornings or afternoons, depending on whenever brain fog hits for you. I gotta be careful with that word. And now, you know when to schedule a creative brainstorm sesh. So, if I'm sleepy a lot, does that mean I'm a naturally creative person? I don't know, but I did read a blog post on OMG Facts that says sleeping in means you're more creative. I think it means you're more likely to be a millennial or Gen Zer, but I'll take that. I'll use that as an excuse the next time I'm late for a morning lecture. It's not that I couldn't get up. I was just creatively mulling over research problems in my sleep. Oh my gosh, that was a whole lot of science which required a lot of reading and intense focus. Watch that prefrontal cortex light up like a bulb. Of course, there's a lot more to creativity that I didn't get to talk about here. So check out the links in the description to the sources I've used. There's so much more good stuff that I didn't mention, like tips on creativity, more scientific explanations, study details, other concepts. So if you want to find out more, that's where you need to go. If you want to get updates on this show, follow me at the Y Girl on Twitter. And follow or subscribe to wherever you are listening to this podcast. Until next time, keep asking those questions in the shower. And I'll see you later.